Good morning. I hope all of you had a good week. I hope all of you have enjoyed this novel as much as I have. It is one of my favorite novels in this class. I should also add that I really don't hate or dislike any of the books I'm teaching. I just think that I enjoy this one a lot, in part because of some of the things we talked about last time, the biblical archetypes, the biblical inversion of the biblical stories, and I think the references to the interwebs and things like that are all important. And I think Ness does a good job of making us think about contemporary issues in a science fiction sort of and completely dystopian novel that borrows biblical and Shakespearean elements. I want to wrap up today with a few bits and pieces, um, and then ask one of the profound questions about literature in general, which is worse? And we'll get to that here in a few minutes. First of all, I do want to talk about the idea of matriarchal versus patriarchal. Matriarchal is a social system where women are in charge. Patriarchal is a social system where men are in charge. And this novel deals with the matriarchal versus patriarchal system, deals with the challenge that's posed by having a matriarchal system and a patriarchal system, and what I believe has been a historic conflict between the two kinds of systems. Um, I've mentioned that I love teaching Greek mythology, and I think the idea of Greek mythology, in a lot of ways, is to explain how the Greek religious system went from a matriarchal story to a patriarchal story, how they went from worshiping Gia to the worship of Zeus. And if there's anything that's patriarchal in the history of humanity, it's Zeus. Prenticetown. First of all, you see this idea that Prenticetown started as New Elizabeth. It became Prenticetown after the mayor's men attacked, after the mayor's men killed all of the women. And like the Greek myths, it started out as a matriarchal society. It was Elizabeth, not the mayor, or not Mayor Prentice. And it became a patriarchal society, and it was never able to go back. Far Branch, as we go to the next slide here, Far Branch was able to retain that matriarchal order until the attack, until the mayor brought his army and destroyed Far Branch and marched all the way to Haven. But you'll notice that there's this difference that Todd has a tough time understanding. Moving from the patriarchal society he lived um, in Prenticetown, and in fact, it was so patriarchal it killed all of the women, to the matriarchal society where Hildy's the mayor. Um, I think you start seeing the shock he has of dealing with that. However, there seems to be this, and I don't want to call it a middle road, but there seem to be most of the places on um, New World are patriarchal. And if you take a look at Carbonal Downs, you'll notice that the women are subjugated, that the women are um, forced into the stereotypical roles of cooking and cleaning and making babies. When I was a kid, there was this phrase about barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen. It seems to be that that's Carbonal Downs's mode of operation, and it is a patriarchal thing. It is allegedly better because they're not murdering, although stealing the soul, stealing the will, enslaving. There's a big argument to be made that those sins are pretty close to murder as well. But anyway, throughout New World, you seem to have this struggle between matriarchal versus patriarchal, and that struggle will continue in the second book. And if I decide that I can get through the third book, I'll try to give you guys a report before the end of the semester on what the third book looks like. In addition to the conflict between matriarchal and patriarchal. There's a lot of stuff in here about hope. And Ben is the one who keeps talking about hope, keeps stressing the idea of hope. And he gives this statement about, I think hope may be the thing that pulls you forward, may be the thing that keeps you going, but it's dangerous too. And it's painful and it's risky. And it's making a dare to the world. And when has the world ever let us win a dare? And I misspoke. This is Todd speaking, not Ben. This is Todd speaking, not Ben. Please remember that. Sorry for the confusion before. I've told you time and time again that I'm going to run Greek mythology in here every chance I get. And in this situation, I think the Greek mythology comes through in the fact of Pandora's box or Pandora's jar. Many versions of the story have Pandora opening the jar and letting all the evils out into the world. And there's always this thing about hope being in the jar and coming out and being an evil because it's risky and it's painful and it's making a dare to the world. For the ancient Greeks, they believed that people were fated to do their jobs and live their lives by the gods. And an effort to change that fate was an effort to challenge the gods. And if people are challenging the gods, they're guilty of hubris. And so I think there's echoes of that Greek myth in Todd's statement about hope here as well. But hope is one of the things that Ben talks about a lot in the novel. Hope is one of the things that Ben claims pulls you forward. Hope is one of the things that he says allowed Todd and Viola to get to the end of the, to get as far as they did, to go across the world in a way that nobody else could have. Hope seems to be this double-edged sword. For your daily writing question, stop and think about, what is this novel about? Is it about the symbolism of the knife? Is it about truth and lies? Is it about matriarchal versus patriarchal? Is it about the despoiling of America? What is it about? Nothing except an exercise in turning biblical stories upside down? Or is it about how to preserve innocence in a perverted world? And as you're thinking about what this novel is about, try to write a complete sentence that explains what the theme of the novel is. You can pause here, or you can keep listening and write it in a few minutes. Let's keep going. I'm going to keep going, excuse me. The last thing I want to talk about is the which is worse. It strikes me that this ending may have frustrated a whole bunch of you. You're not in class, so you can't tell me. When you're next in class, I'd like to hear what you thought about this ending before we get started on the Hunger Games. It can be part of your sports talk radio / one question, one comment. This ending, when I got to it, I'll say angered. I want to use a little stronger word, but I'll say angered me quite a bit. But it does get me thinking, which is worse? Deus Ex Machina. Way back in the day, Deus Ex Machina was part of the Greek stage. And on the Greek stage, the god would come down from on high in this chariot, lowered by a crane. It was the great special effect of the Greek stage. And they would stop the war and they would save everything. The god in the machine would come to the rescue at just the right time. And we've taken that term to the appearance of something that suddenly and unexpectedly provides a contrived solution to a difficulty that should be impossible to get out of. And we saw this in Holes. Stanley is rescued by the patent attorney, who somehow gets the Texas Attorney General to show up and see Stanley Yelnitz's name written on a briefcase as there's a bunch of lizards about to eat them, and the warden and Mr. Sir and Mr. Pendanski are just standing there and watching. And it's that behavior that allows the lawyer to take zero with them. She already had the paperwork to get Stanley out, but it allows the lawyer to take zero with them because obviously he's being endangered. And they're rescued, and then it's full of money, but the real valuable stuff is the stock certificates, and everything turns out happily ever after. That's the Dos Ex Machina. And then we have the cliffhanger. And the idea of the cliffhanger is either it's not tied up until the very last minute, or if you look on the left side of the screen, it is the thing to get you reading the next installment. And that's what this one is doing. They come into Haven. Here's the mayor. She's wounded. We're worried she's going to die. Todd agrees to submit if he agrees to save her life. And now we have book two. And we have to figure out what happens in book two. And by the end of book two, since I have read that one, we have another cliffhanger. So we have to go to book three. And one of the things in my mind is always, which is worse? The cliffhanger, which forces you to buy the new book. And by the way, if you're trying to, if you got the book new, you might have to wait 2 years for the book to get for the book to the next book to come out and have the cliffhanger resolved. Fortunately for this one, you can get all three books now if you want to. But the fact of the matter is, you've got the cliffhanger that just leaves everything open ended and may make you wait a long time, or you have the contrived solution that is almost completely and totally unbelievable and really stretches your ability to, create the willing suspension of disbelief. Something to think about. It's kind of one of the flaws of having the book in a series like this. Okay, I think this wraps it up. Remember, the quiz is going to be starting shortly. Remember to get that daily writing done, and I hope you all have a very, very good day.